Between the 16th and 20th centuries, several European countries colonized almost the entire planet. A few of them grew to be some of the largest empires in all of known human history. Take the British Empire, for example. It was said that the sun never truly set upon it, but none of these empires exist today. What happened? Well, a few things. And this topic could use its own video, but to keep things simple, two things happened. The World Wars and the United Nations. The World Wars devastated Europe and Japan. It brought their economies to the ground. And while colonies usually make money, it takes a lot of maintenance and overhead to keep them profitable, which is something the war-torn empires just couldn't provide. Add in the fact that a lot of the people from the colonies experienced nationalism and national fraternity, and this made the empires economically and politically toxic. Whatever strength the surviving empires did have left was met by the United Nations, who believed that a more autonomous world was a better one. Countries that really did want to keep their protectorates were forced to give them up, or at least offer referendums. But wait, if you look at a map of today, places like Reunion, Martinique, and Aruba say they're all still owned by another country. Well, some places were too small or too culturally related to their owners to separate, or they just voted on remaining in their sphere of influence. This leads to the question, who did the best job of owning their colonies? Well, the answer is nobody. Because nobody owns colonies anymore. They've all been reappropriated in other governments and titles, which makes differentiating and organizing the empires pretty difficult for this video. So unfortunately I had to make my own guidelines for what is and isn't a colony. And I'm pretty sure you guys are going to tell me that my guidelines are foolish, or I should have included this or excluded that. But with such a gray area, I had to set it up this way. So guideline number 1. It must be disconnected from the capital. Guideline number 2. The population must identify with something other than the overlord culture. The overlord culture can exist there, but there must be at least a sizable minority. Number 3, a difference in government to the overlord territory. This could be anything from as minor to titles, to something major to like citizenship, or different forms of currency, or even an autonomous electorate. Number 4, unquestionable reliance. Some of my considerations are technically independent, but they rely so heavily on another country that they can't just be independent. Some things I'm excluding are commonwealths. Just because you're on someone else's money doesn't mean you're their ruler. If a territory is too independent from their overlord, I'm not going to consider them. Anything to be considered a colony, it must have a permanent population. No scientists. Sorry, Antarctica. So you may ask then, what are the credentials for a good colony? Well, good population, a good size, and finally a sun factor, which is basically how far away is it from the de jure territory. So with all that out of the way, let's begin with number 5, Denmark. Denmark may not have had a large colonial empire, but it's still noteworthy. And honestly, its lack of size is probably what kept it stable to today. Now, the population of its overseas territories of the Faroe Islands and Greenland is pretty small at about 110,000. But it's Greenland's size that puts it on this list, at around 2,166,000 kilometers, or 836 square miles. It's larger than the total landmass of all the other colonies on this list combined. And although Greenland is only a few years away from absolute independence, I would still consider it a colony today. Number 4, the United Kingdom. What was once the greatest empire the world had ever seen is now reduced to a few bases and islands. Although it would have been an economic and diplomatic nightmare to hold on even to half of what it once owned, it still has a sizable population. As a matter of fact, its subject population is 491,000 people. And it still has some pretty good territory all around the world. At around 14,000 kilometers, or 8,748 miles. As a matter of fact, it has so many places that it can't even list them all without boring you. But some honorable mentions would be Gibraltar, the Isle of Man, and the Cayman Islands. Number 3, the United States of America. America likes to pretend the hardest that it didn't have a colonial past. And it likes to claim that everything it did own was either purchased rightfully or taken from an evil and undemocratic empire, which isn't entirely the case, but almost everything America did own has been properly incorporated into the country and can't be considered a colony today. However, during the late 1800s, America was pretty jealous of the Europeans with their world domination, so it wanted to have a piece of its own oppression as well. And to do that, they smashed up pretty much all the remains of the Spanish Empire, along with a few Pacific islands. This constitutes pretty much everything that can be considered American colony today, along with some other forgotten acquisitions. In the Caribbean, America owns Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. And in the Pacific, America owns Guam, American Samoa, and the Northern Mariana Islands. I'm also including Palau, the Federated States of Micronesia, and the Marshall Islands. Because although the last 3 are technically independent, they rely so heavily on the US government that they might as well be a colony. They have the same postal service and military. Can't be independent without those. Altogether, the American Empire consists of 12,014 kilometers, or 7,465 miles, with a population of 4,013,032. Number 2. Indonesia. Just looking at the shape and ethnicities found within Indonesia, you can pretty much say the entire country is a colony. And it was once. And the reason it's on this list is for 3 almost autonomous regions: Aceh, Papua, and West Papua. Aceh is renowned for being a Sharia law state found within the more liberal Indonesia. And it's also known for being as oppressive as a Persian Gulf state. This is because they agreed to be formally annexed by Indonesia instead of being conquered or joining in the liberation. And because of that, they were given some extra autonomy. Now, I said Indonesia is a little more liberal, but that doesn't mean it's a much nicer place to be. Papua and West Papua earned their autonomy by fighting with the government. Even though Indonesia is still oppressing a lot of people in those places, at least they got a little bit more freedom. Together, the 3 provinces add 9,095,574 people and 517,788 kilometers, or 321,728 miles. That is huge, and if the provinces were more spread out, it would have been number 1 on the list. Number 1, France. Denmark may have more land, Indonesia may have more people, and America may have a bit more in both departments, but I think France still deserves the top. I mean, it's the only country with a still large continental colony. France could even say its empire never truly sets. It still holds territory in the Caribbean, the offshore of Africa, North America, South America, and the Pacific. Now you may ask, why was France able to hold on to so many of its colonies? Well, first off, they were never the largest colonial empire, so when independence was booming, they were able to divert their resources to protecting and preserving the places they did actually want to control. But the bigger staying power was all the people of these areas were given the same rights as French people. Kourou in Martinique is as European as Turin and Hamburg. It also helps that Paris gave these lands a lot of money. Thanks for watching my video. If you enjoyed what you saw, please like, share, and subscribe.